How is it possible that there is so much more production happening here in Dublin, where I am right now, than there is in Los Angeles? Let's break it down and let's put it all together. Rob Lowe just gave this interview where he talked about how he shoots his game show, The Floor, here in Dublin, and that it is cheaper to fly 100 Americans to Dublin than to shoot the show in Los Angeles. It is not just The Floor. The studios here in Dublin are full, and they're full largely of these American game and reality shows. They call them shiny floor shows here because the floors are shiny and reflective like mirrors and polished, and they're employing a lot of people here in Dublin. How did this happen? It happened because there's been decades of Los Angeles, California taking it for granted, and a little bit of arrogance. The belief that the production game could really only happen in Hollywood. California was really late to provide production incentives. Los Angeles is still notoriously difficult to shoot in. Frankly, I've shot movies in LA and in New York. It's easier to shoot a movie in New York. In New York, permitting is fast. They roll out the red carpet for you. The police are cooperative. They'll shut down Fifth Avenue for you if you want to shoot on Fifth Avenue during the day. In LA, it's so difficult. So the process isn't easy, but it's also about economics. And I want to go deep into the economics because this is not just about the anecdotal, circumstantial situation where you say, oh, it's cheaper to shoot a movie in a different location and make it look like where you really want to be. A generation ago, we shot Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at Churubusco Studios in Mexico City because it was cheaper. Studios, production companies were always looking for a place where it's going to be cheaper on a one-off basis. But what I'm talking about is systemically, LA has lost the business. I know a lot of people who work below the line who have moved out of the city. I know some people have actually sold their houses and traded them in for mobile homes so they can drive to other states in the United States and work as a local and just keep practicing the craft that they love so much. Governor Newsom, Karen Bass, Mayor Bass, thanks for what you have been talking about doing in the past couple of months, but really you're late to the party. And the governors, legislatures, and the mayors for decades before you have been late to the party and slow to wake up. You have to create a structure that supports production. Frankly, if California really wanted to do something for Los Angeles after the fires that we tragically, horrifically suffered some months ago, the first thing they would have done is commit something like $2 billion to create massive incentives for the production of film and television in the city. It would have revived the economy. It would have put people to work. A lot of the people who lost their homes in the fires were people who worked in our industries. But did that happen? No. There was a lot of talk. There has not been a lot of action. And as we look at it in the global picture, we're living in a really uncertain world right now. The world is unstable. There are wars perhaps about to start. There are wars that have already started and been waged for a couple of years. There's devastation going on. Then there's all the stuff about tariffs that make it impossible for businesses to make decisions. When businesses don't have certainty, businesses pull back. They hold on to their cash. They do not make commitments because they might need that cash for something else. So we're living in a really uncertain environment. And then there's this tax bill, which is in front of Congress right now, which is going to cut social services, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, exactly impact the people who make movies and TV shows here in the United States, and it's going to redistribute that money out of their pockets, out of their benefits that they worked so hard for, that have been taken out of their paychecks and redistributed upwards to people who are at higher income brackets. How does that make sense? And then there's inflation, and by the way, this new tax bill, if it passes, is going to be highly inflationary, just like tariffs are inflationary. They raise the cost of everything for everybody. So if you're listening, if decision makers, politicians, people in Washington, people in Sacramento, you really got to get this under control. And the reason to get it under control is that culture matters. The arts that we practice matter. The people who make film and TV and media are the lifeblood of our culture industries. And the culture industries are so important that other countries, other states, other cities have seen that and for decades have been building up the infrastructure to take the business away from Hollywood and Los Angeles. The jobs aren't coming back to LA. LA is still so expensive. And unless there's massive incentives to make it cost competitive, even if they don't come here to Dublin, they're going to go to Atlanta. They're going to go to Louisiana. They're going to go someplace else where the incentives are really good and they make sense. And the reason culture matters so much is that it is the narrative that binds us. It's what is sometimes called soft power. I kind of hate that phrase because soft power sounds so, I don't know, soft. But I think of it as influence. I think of culture as the hard stuff. I think of it as the narratives that people follow that bind cultures and communities and societies together. And when we don't support the people who make our culture, when we don't support our creative people, things fall apart. Hey, things are falling apart right now, and where we should really be spending our resources, our focus, our attention should be on the culture and the culture makers and the people who preserve it. The governments have huge roles to play. South Korea didn't win the Academy Award for the film Parasite overnight. They won it because of 30 years of concentrated, focused subsidy for their creative industries, from education to building studios to tax incentives and government support for the arts to create the people so the creativity could flourish. Same here in Dublin, same across Europe, where there have been supports for the arts for years, and it has grown up an entire creative industry. What's the takeaway from this? The takeaway is that as individuals, we have to work doubly hard, and that kind of sucks. And it's hard to do that work when there are no structural supports. It also means that a lot of people that I know, a lot of people who are in the United States are coming to work in Europe or other places where it's just easier to find work, where there are structures to support it. And I think generally what it means is that we've got to look at culture as not a separate element. It is part of a whole national agenda. It has to be part of the entire national strategy, not just a state strategy, but a national strategy to support culture and creativity. And yeah, I know that sounds like I'm talking crazy at a time when everything costs so much and budgets are being cut, and there is this complicated tax bill in front of Congress right now that will probably even further destabilize our economy, drive higher inflation, take money out of the pockets of working people. But we've really got to start having this discussion. I invite you to have this discussion with me, because I think you can't look at culture, creativity, film, music, any of the creative industries in a vacuum. They are not separate. They are part of an entire whole. They're part of a society. They're part of a culture. And if the culture that we live in matters to us, we've got to support it all the way around the spectrum. We can't just support it in one place at one time, at one state, in one city, and imagine that it's going to work.